All right, the story so far, we're in the midst of the second turn, of the first impulse of the second turn. I've done the Soviet attacks on the second turn, and we'll just take a brief look at what kind of push we've made. I did this on the prior video. You can see, been able to use units from other maps to engage and push in. Here, we got an impressive breakthrough that I didn't think I was going to be able to get on this map. That's getting me a lot of territory there. This is sort of the hardest of the maps simply because other ones either start, well, first of all the other ones start further east. So, the Fulda Gap area is relatively heavily defended, perhaps because of that. It also doesn't have much in the way of border. The border doesn't project very far onto the map, so this border projects out to here. Over here, the border projects over to here. On Hof Gap, on this side, the border projects out to here, and you can see we've made, pretty much an advance that's a little in advance of that border. Actually, no, this is actually part of East Germany here, poking out. And then here on the Donau front, the border projects only to here. We've made advances out to here. That's a paratrooper that threw himself in there for a specific mission against the helicopter. The dark purple, those are Czech units, so you can see there's not a lot of defense in the way on the Donau front map. I don't know how clear that is in this lighting. Get a little bit more light there, just to see the distinguishment between the purple, which is Czech units, and the gray, which is the West Germans. There just isn't much on that map to defend it. The French are going to be coming on, but they had a policy at this point of having to not being permanently deployed in Germany. And so there you have that. Anyway, that's the feel we've had. Some of these advances, well, most of these advances are somewhat suspect because for all of the first turn and almost all of the second turn until I got to this map and things got harder, I've been kind of cheating the direct fire artillery and not charging it ammo, which means that essentially the Soviets have had much more supply than they should historically, or well, realistically, guesstimate-wise, whatever, because it's really hard. So that's one of the conditions of this game. Anything that's projected from this game is completely hypothetical, right? I feel like the designer had a pretty good idea of what the US military thought, but may not have had a very good idea of what the Soviet military thought, and the whole situation could have ended up completely different from how either of the militaries assumed such an advance would happen. Personally, I'm not too disturbed by the advances that I see. I think that, given that this is day one of the invasion, yeah, a lot of ground got covered, but things are going to get a lot harder after the second day and the Soviet surprise rules kind of wear off. Here it is, Friday. Looks like we're finally going to get some sun today. Like, it's not supposed to rain, but I can't do anything on a Friday because I go dancing on Friday. And in fact, I doubt that I'm going to be able to play any of this. We'll see, but Raid is being very demanding. I got up at like 4 in the morning, which isn't that unreasonable for me, but it does mean that I have to take some kind of nap. I actually had like 8 hours of sleep. The reason I grabbed the camera here is I'm finding it, oddly enough, that, yeah, my tastes have changed. I'm getting an enjoyment out of playing this. I don't know if it's just, having it set up on a table that's reasonable, or if the operational style games are just more appealing to me somehow. I'm getting more out of it than I did before. And this is weird. It's like the OCS was the first sort of, well, so the very simple I have my breakfast cooking, that's what you hear. The very first, the early operational games that I first looked at, and I was kind of like, these feel simple. The pleasure in those came to me more recently. Like, I saw them as interesting little puzzle games rather than anything else, and kind of enjoyable. But with these bigger ones, I don't know. I mean, there's just something that's more appealing to me. Now, I'm not going to go hunt down Europa, and I'm sure the hell not going to get the Diffraction Games monstrosity that's built off of the concepts there. But and honestly, those are both big dumb monsters. Those are not what I'm into. I'm into these things that have a little bit more going on in them. Anyway, I tried to nap and I failed. Unfortunately, I've been falling asleep at around 8 p.m. Which is why 4 a.m. was my wake up, although only because I went 8 hours, which is unusual for me, but I'm starting to wake up around then. In that case, I guess I'll start moving some of the NATO units and trying to fall back. Somebody pointed out, I never remember people's names. I'm not a name person, I'm not a face person, I'm an idea person. I remember people by their ideas. I'm actually face blind, so not being able to remember names is really problematic, right? But he pointed out that NATO doctrine is not to give up space. Certainly the West Germans are very firmly, and there's special rules for that. I'm not sure how much I agree from what I know, but what I know is very limited about the era. So I'm playing it, following what I feel. But obviously, look, their victory conditions are based on the number of city hexes they have. So they do not want to give up at least the important territory. The stuff that's hard to get that they can maybe form a defensive line on. They don't have any capability to like schlep supplies in to the cities and whatnot, even with air power. So I don't know about that. They do have that in NATO, which is at a higher scale. And I've started some of the shifting, actually trying to hold as much of this river line and generate a defensive line around here. I took a look and I'm like, oh look, those are British units, because they look about the same color as the Brits on this map. But no, the Brits on this map are this glowing orange, and the US units from the new set, which I don't want to use for various, I want to use as few as possible. Those are US. Wow, what the hell am I going to do with US? This is like the third armored. I think I probably do still want to shift it over in this general direction, but maybe not in the place where I was going to put it, because those forces will be of value over here where artillery can support them better and whatnot. But it is a little jumbled up to have shit like that. Over here, I've decided not to withdraw from any of these hexes because the cost of withdrawal is pretty high. And while I don't think I can hold this side of the river with Hamburg, I do think that I can cause lots of problems, and I don't have a way back across. The Elbe is too thick. Oh, maybe I could cross here. It's all very, very confusing to me what the river situation is. If I could cross there, then that artillery will probably make its way across instead of where it is. I don't know, that artillery is fairly safe for at least a little while. Once breakthroughs start happening, it's going to be ugly, but the Soviets don't have a lot of gas left. They really don't. their units are going to have to recover. They're not going to be able to bust their way through that city very easily. And now this map is complete as far as NATO is concerned. Again, not a lot changed here. I had to shift some artillery to get it in the background so it doesn't just get taken out by the next wave of attacks. A lot of forces coming down, filling in the gap. I feel pretty comfortable with everything up until about this thing in terms of, look, I mean, there's weaknesses here. What am I going to do? You know, and just going to sit there and take it. If the Soviets decide to attack along that sector, because this has gotten kind of ugly for me to for them to attack. Elsewhere, basically, the idea is just to make them pay as much as possible. I pulled that helicopter out way up here. You know, it's got plenty of range. I mean, I could have probably left it where it was, but the temptation would be too great to throw its strength in, get it killed or whatever. Pulling it back a little bit gives me some time to decide to recharge, although it does cost it another friction point. Now, let's put a marker here to indicate that I'm done with that map. There was something else I wanted to say, but I don't remember what it was. Oh yeah, there's a weakness. So some of these units, I did not move. I could flip them over and just say I'm moving them. I don't want to, but there is a potential weakness in terms of, hey look, these Soviet units could get a breakthrough, and then a couple of these units would not be able to react at all for the rest of the turn, however long that might be. How big a deal is that? I don't know. I could flip them over and put them in a state of readiness or whatever, and that might be wise because they would recover from it. But on the other hand, maybe I'm counting on them simply not being successfully moved. Yeah, these two are too important. Let's declare that they moved. They're just too important. Other things along the line, I'm just like, if the Soviets if the Soviets don't do a second pulse and they leave it as it is, I didn't lose anything. If they do a second pulse and they hit other units, I gain the capability to react. It's only if they hit these particular units, the two that I flipped over, that are in cities and probably pretty hard to take out, that I suffer any cost for what I did, which is to say, if I take losses, I will not recover from being ready. Everything else I feel comfortable with. These units back here, they all have to recover. I did actually throw a unit that has to recover into at least the secondary line here. Maybe this one too. No. Normally I don't like to do things like that. I like to let my units recover as much as possible, but yeah, this just looked too weak. Where was it? This space here. This could cross and hit it conceivably. Well, it would have to blow this out of the way first. It's really unlikely, but I thought it was worth covering with that extra unit because of it. All right, I'm going to pause. I don't know if I'm going to sleep or not, whatever, but I just feel like I have to do some of the playing when there's good light. It sucks. Only fucking day that was anywhere near this pretty. And it's the one day, and next week, what I can see of it on my little app that I have on my desktop looks pretty bad again. Yeah, would I have gone? I don't know, because I have to face my cart and see if it'll work, and if it won't work, then I have to face a whole different kind of problem where I absolutely should go. If I can get my cart so that I'm able to trust it, like if the wheels aren't as bad as I fear they might be, then then I don't have to go this week at all. Like, it's no big deal that I'm not going, because I can haul. Like, I'm not out of food. I'm not even out of my normal stuff, but I'm stressing because of the cart situation that, geez, I should be going once a week or something with my backpack because I can't carry as much as I can in my cart. All right, didn't get any sleep still. I got a worry here. There's some British troops coming in, but the Bayeur map, there's a tendency when you have a map divide to kind of lose sight of what's going on, especially if you're operating like I am. Hey, you stop at one map and go to the next. And in this case, it's problematic because there's a gap here that if I don't cover, I got issues. And you can see, you know, hey, maybe I could have gotten the US unit up there. I don't think I could have. I counted out the movement and it was ending up somewhere in this range as opposed to, you know, down here or something. So I think I'm going to have to work on shifting the entire defense of the Bayeur map. Now, to some extent, I have some Brits up here that I can push down as well. It's the real confusion. These are US units, these are British units. These are the US units over here, much greener. This is, again, US units, but, you know, there are no Brits on this map. Just some US units that I either lost counters for or didn't exist prior to the update that came when Bayeur came out. And therefore I'm plundering them from the Volhers counter set. And I mentioned this before, I hate this about the Bayeur rules. They're set up with the game turn, hard to find the units, but once you find a formation, you can kind of figure out which unit comes in where. But on top of that, they have varying movement point, operations points left in their initial movement, which is just, it's just obnoxious, you know. I don't know if they have that much precision. I would guess so. They know where the bases are and whatnot. Problematic situation for the Soviets is they set themselves up to advance and puncture as deeply as they can, great and all that, but they ended up leaving an opening up that a bunch of units are streaming out through. These are units that have no chance, that don't have to make a check to get away. They're not in the zone or anything, and they just left, including from back here. Do I want to give that up? Well, yeah. I got to think about these guys, whether or not I can extricate them from their situation, whether it's worth trying to extricate them. They'll take an extra hit if I fail, but they might be able to, you know, get themselves into a not unreasonable place. And the Soviets aren't really able to prevent supplies from getting out because they weren't able to block the roads, which means, yeah, maybe they can reposition, expend extra friction points to advance and whatever, to maybe cut off some units, but that's about the limit of it. And a couple of paratroopers here. I don't know if they're supposed to come in this turn or not. I've got a division there that I don't want to bring in yet. That I think comes in on this road, and I got to figure out what the hell's going on around here first. Fortunately, it's time for me to play a raid, and I'm going to have trouble remembering what the hell is going on. I'm going to put that there and hope that helps me somehow for no apparent reason, really. It really doesn't, but it at least tells me what map I'm on. And yeah, you won't see me again tonight, is for sure. Probably not tomorrow either, unless, just because I'm on low sleep and going dancing, which means it's probably going to eat up. I mean, I'm not really on low sleep, but I'm getting very close to the time that I normally go to bed. Well, here it is, Sunday, early afternoon, and not a good day for various reasons. I'm feeling a little under this weather, as it were. I obviously, you know, don't play usually on Saturday, but I've been up for a long time, and raid has really been demanding. And then I come over here, and I find There's a victim. These big windows cause me to lose a bird every year or so, sometimes more. I've been leaving the windows get dirty. I let everything get dirty, but I started doing this on purpose. There was originally a flag that helped keep them away, but I had to get some netting or something, I don't know. But anyway, with them dirty, they don't see the reflection as much for whatever reason, the rainy day, I don't know. I mean, usually the adults don't run into it. Usually it's when they're still, fairly young that they do. All right, and then I'll start over here. I don't know which map I'm on. See, I got this here. I think I'm still working on the Beoor map. Looks like I did quite a bit more than the last discussion, though. I know I stuck around a little bit. Slipped as I was flinging it off my porch and it hit those couple of trees and dropped right to them, which is not where I wanted it. I wanted it a little further down. There's a nice gully down there. Hides it from my view. Avoid going over in that direction for some time now. I really don't like dead things. It's funny, my wife, those are what I always see. Every time that I picked one up, which is since she died, because, again, I really dislike dead things. She reported that, once there was a crow, and I think one of my stellars had hit. But for me, every single time it's that same type of bird. It's they're basically a robin, I think. They don't look like the robins that I'm used to from the East Coast, but they look close enough that I think they are, and they have a little different song. We had one really exciting, but it survived. The Steller Jays had chased an owl against this door, but we had seen that it was cornered under the roof at one point, and then it just slammed into the door. But it doesn't, I don't know. Whatever, it wasn't flying hard enough to really get hurt, but it was knocked out, and the Stellars were going to kill it. So I went out there, put a box over it, and eventually it recovered and got away. But yeah, which is really good because owls are a little bit scarcer and prettier, and I don't really care about the robins. But I hate to see anything dead. I just really do. Death bothers me. All right, and it always has. I guess we'll move on here. There was something that I wanted to mention, which I guess I will now while I'm thinking about it. So there's nothing that the NATO can do about this right now, but there's basically a nasty gap going through here and a weakness here, another gap here. This isn't too nasty because there's no road, so, but he might be able to get up to here. If the Warsaw Pact chooses to hit the gas and burn their units a little harder, they can make a lot of ground. Now remember, fighting, inevitably is going to cause some friction as well. So it might not be that bad an idea. But if the Warsaw Pact does not take advantage of this situation, and they may not want to, I think the NATO units almost invariably have to do something to try to cover it, because they really don't want fresh Warsaw Pact units at the beginning of the next turn doing it. So we may see a significant amount of units do a double move from one side or the other. I don't know. I have to make a judgment as to whether the commies want to go there. Oh, I haven't been paying attention to the Beoor special rules, other than, hey, what they would be. Otherwise, the special rules are all integrated into the full rule set now from this set. But I missed this NATO reinforcements one. British reinforcements listed with a reference to this case enter under special conditions of fatigue, having worked around the clock to cross the English Channel. Upon entry, they have to roll a die for each to see how many friction points it gains. Anywhere from 1 to 3. Nasty. What I was doing is looking in here just to see if these guys come in. But there may be some that I need to recover that for. It's going to say 23.4. How is it going to say that reference? See, I'm not seeing this reference anywhere. That's the problem. We're just not seeing any reference to it. British reinforcements listed with a reference to this case. I'm not seeing a reference. So, I mean, the reinforcements are listed with this game turn marker here. The number here is hits already present on the unit, which I may have fucked up. Because I don't remember anything having 2 hits on it to begin with. This is how many ops points it has on the first turn that it is active. And I don't see this information being present anywhere else. Here we go. British Airborne C20.33. That's not it. It's 20.44. And that's all the British reinforcements are contained within this. I think the references have been left off. I'm going to ignore them. I think I've done a lot of cheating in favor of the communists. This is not that big a deal. But, and what are we looking for here? We're looking for the 3rd Armored Division, which is all coming in at 2101. I don't know if I've brought any, I don't think I've brought anything else in on that hex yet this turn. That's here. I might be able to get some of that down, at least, you know, to cover the river so they don't get across the damn river. That would be a nightmare. But I have, I did pull out some of the German units from being in contact. This is not 100% good because, you know, I got something like this. Well, that's just screwed. But I had excess units here, and I'd love to get this out, but it can't leave. I've got like a unit here that I could withdraw over. I could conceivably pull stuff off that map, but those are damaged units. I think I'm gonna have to. Just finding covering force. And the Soviets have already crossed the damn river, so maybe too late. Initial movement looked pretty good. It started covering this gap, heading down towards here, but they don't have 12 movement points. For the most part, 7, and yeah. Stripping several West Germans out of this little corner that was gonna be hard to extricate anyway. I mean, I could have, there's no question, but it wasn't optimal no matter what. It'd be a column moving up in that direction. I've got a little bit of a force here. I've pushed some units that I would have liked to have recovering from back here up into this location. This guy was from back there. Just, you know, we got a little bit of defense here. It's not nearly enough, and this gap is still open. It's not perfect. That's not a great gap, right? I'm more worried about this road here, to be honest, which isn't a complete gap, but it's also, not something I want to withdraw from. I want to force them to fight their way through there. But after doing that, the Fifth Corps map's looking a little weaker. You know, the units that are up here, they're pretty battered. Not all of them. We can get some defense down, but we're not going to be able, like, what we're looking at is some kind of line going up this way. Well, I don't think we can do that. I don't think we can protect the castle flank there. It's a city. It'll be more painful, but I really think bad stuff is happening on the Bayeux map. And meanwhile, all these U.S. forces, a lot of them are chewed up from the initial strike, but I don't see. I'm going to have to give a fair amount of ground, try to hold Frankfurt if I can. I feel like figuring out the Fifth Corps map requires that I kind of understand what the situation is going to be like on the Hof Gap map, and therefore we're going to work our way from the left now. Put this up here to remind me. Yes, I've moved some units onto the Bayeux map, but I don't view that as any kind of real problem. And at this point, I have to try to figure out where my defensive line is, and I start looking and I'm like, well, am I able to hold this? You know, because if I am, that changes the nature. And despite reinforcements coming in, they're coming in with very few movement points according to the entry rules for the Donau-Thorn game, which is a different series. Maybe movement points are different in it. I don't know. But there's nothing added for it. Got some mountain units and some armor coming in from this side. But again, not fast enough to cover the gap, and things are looking really, really ugly. It's like, yeah, maybe I can hold Munich, maybe. In the urban area back here, I don't think I can hold anything, you know, any further line here, like on the Donau. Oh, trying to pull back where I can, thinking about these guys. This guy can't. This guy, you know, if I've got a kind of vague defensive line and I've got artillery that's worn out and stuff, maybe I can hold that back. I doubt it, but they're only checks, so we'll see if they bounce. Still got this to move. I don't know where that's going to go. But shifted the troops from here over across the river, but I don't have this area defended, and I just don't have the troops for it. But we're seeing the first NATO attack coming in here. Now, I've spent 2 movement points to get in there. I've got artillery in place. I don't have the right to use chemicals, unfortunately for me. So right now, I'm looking at a 5-to-1. Yeah. Boy, this sucks. A 5-to-1 in the woods. I mean, it's not like the NATO troops are just better than the Soviet troops. It's just attacking sucks. So 5-to-1 flat woods is a shitty trade-off. That thing's got 3 hits. It's taken 1 already. It can take 2 more, and then it gets destroyed on the next one. So this doesn't look too good. No chemicals I can throw in. I could throw in another 3 artillery, get that out to 8-to-1. Probably want to throw an EW in. My EW is a little better, simply because otherwise the Soviets can throw an air point in. I don't think they can use chemicals on defense. And I don't really have any artillery in range. So that's not an issue, but I might have helicopters that are healthy enough. Yeah, I do. That could blot in. So let's get rid of a Donau front NATO EW. Well, we don't have a lot of them. But that's first check. I believe that's 1 through 4. If that doesn't work, we may be in trouble. And I'm going to use a 3-point attack on this, as usual. That does work. Now I get my attack, and I'm doing a normal fight because it doesn't really help the defense otherwise. So that's 2 hits on on that unit. If I retreat the unit, it's not really advantageous. Like, I'm in as good a terrain as I can be. So I'll just do that. But I think that means I have to do another attack and another EW. Yeah, lucky I had two. And I don't think we need as high an odds, so we'll drop this down to the 5-to-1 table. We're willing to take a hit, I guess. I don't know. Nah. We need to throw the artillery in. Artillery recovers quickly. What the hell? And the EW check works. Lucky us. And we get a big hit. That's going to give us some pursuit no matter what, and also then we get to move the rest of our movement around. That's basically the end of the line for the Darnall front map. These guys are too beat up to do anything. The helicopter's fine where it is. I hope. I mean, there could be a breakthrough all that far. This line I'm not thrilled with, but I can't withdraw this unit or this unit. So this guy might as well stay there. He's protecting that artillery a little bit. Not much, but a little bit. And the artillery can't move. It's out of friction points. It's basically dead if the Soviets decide to make a move on it, but it's not trivial for them to do so. And trying to build up a little bit of a line here, as well as the line that we've got around whatever this is. A bunch of little towns, a bunch of little cities I don't know. But yeah, this is the best I can do, that I can think of. And there's a big road going straight up to some damaged units, some city. I bet you we're going to see the Czechs go running up that way, and there's just not a lot that NATO can do about it. Question, though, is do the Czechs do it now? Or again, do they wait, give these German units a chance to come down and reinforce? I'm not going to be hitting those units. But like this stuff could race across. Of course, then that leaves this open. It's not good terrain to defend in here, except right down here near the border. If one could have set up, I would go for a forward defense, but the way NATO kind of operates is those covering forces are something of a tripwire. They give a little bit of time for other units to reconstitute in the reforger sites and stuff like that. So it's not, it's not considering a wartime ready scenario in this game. Now, the old NATO Victory Games game allowed you to choose the level of preparedness. So you could have actually had a lot more units on the board with the NATO forces, but you wouldn't have been able to change the deployment of where those forces come in. So they would actually set up at their, at their reinforcement, their reforger sites, whatever they have, as opposed to being able to move down and get to the border. As far as I recall, I think I usually or almost always play the full surprise scenario, because the non-full surprise scenario gets bogged down real fast. And there the answer is kind of like, well, the only way the Soviets have to get across, to make any gains is start tossing nukes. Of course, in the surprise scenario, the only way NATO has of stopping the Soviets is to toss nukes, in my opinion. And both of these things, I don't know if the victory conditions are perfectly balanced, but I feel hopeless in both cases. And the nuke scenario gives you a 50-50 chance of winning, which feels pretty good compared to, the emotional and psychological situation. Here, I just don't buy the use of nukes by either player yet. And it's so painful for NATO to use the nukes. I have to plot them and everything, so that's just not going to happen. And if the Soviets use them, I'm probably going to call the game. Like if the Soviets get to the point where their choice is use nukes or basically lose the scenario, I'm just going to stop. I don't want to deal with the nuke rules, mainly because NATO has to plot theirs, and I don't want to do movement. I don't want to do any kind of plot. You could take that restriction away, but then they become very, very powerful. I'm going to take a break for a bit. I made it through a map and a half. That's pretty good, and watch some more of whatever Rockefeller documentary I'm watching. It's gotten downright foggy. It's still technically daytime. Anyway, I got Raid playing in the background. You might be hearing that, but I'm going to move on to the Hofgap map. Try to move that along. Got myself some coffee. That'll help a little bit. Just having some flavor, you know. Cleared that artillery unit that got weirdly bypassed. And I mean, I probably could have just overrun it, right? Because I would have gotten the movement points back from it, but it would have cost me some resources, likely. So whatever, it's trying to make its way back. But there's an East German paratrooper here, another one of these little problems. I got to clear that out. I set this guy in motion against it. I'm going to use attack helicopters to help in that attack. Obviously some EW. Hope for the best. Could end up bad. I mean, the big thing is I need the movement points afterwards, because I need to get down and start building up this defensive line to something that makes some sense. But I want to make this attack before I do. Now, I actually have some forces, and I may bring these in. Cheating, I guess. I don't know. I got some air mobile stuff that I can drop, well, paratroopers and whatnot, that I can drop. No, I can't. Not available until I have air power. Okay, never mind. My thought was, yeah, you know, I could try to hinder the advance on this map or something, maybe cover some of this space in here, but nope, not allowed yet. Not allowed yet. Oh well, I got some over here too. As soon as I get air power, things change a lot. A lot of things change a lot, but Warsaw Pact's gaining a lot of ground in the meantime. And it took a couple of shots, a couple of EW, and I cleared that out. But that means that the unit, whichever it was, I think this one, didn't get to where I wanted it. I've got a defensive line with an artillery in the front line that I don't really like, but that's, this I think was pulling back from behind, and that's as far as it could get anyway. It's just I might have been able to cover a little closer in had I cleared that a little earlier. Instead, yeah, I got some weird shit, you know, where I'm pulling like an artillery that was out of here to move forward or to move back to where it has more support. It's just too valuable to leave on the front line because it can be pinned and screwed with. Now that's damaged stuff. Got a couple of units here that I got to think about. I might be able to support over here. Most of the stuff that hasn't moved, I mean, I thought I had everything moved, and then I noticed those two artillery. Most of the stuff that hasn't moved is too damaged for me to really be able to make use of. If this unit was in better shape, I might. Got to try to get that artillery out. I got these West Germans who might be being used over here on the 5th Corps map. But that's about it. The thing I've been doing that I did over here when I moved those artillery around, I was able to find an engineer, and that's a U.S. engineer, actually. Yeah, I know it looks British, but at least from the original counter mix, but it's not, it's U.S. Is an engineering unit. It's a crappy little unit, you know, like an armored cav or whatever, that still gives me a chance to use the artillery with its actual firepower. So it gets that, yeah, I'm only adding one to the defense for the engineer, but I'm adding one or two more for the artillery, depending on the type of combat, whatever. So that's giving me, you know, it's not the defensive line I would choose, let's put it that way, but it's giving me something like a line. And taking another break. Oh, I got an artillery there to move. I'm just going to do that, but without coming back. But yeah, I think it's time for me to go play some more raid. Just, I don't know. Right after a brief break, let's take a look at the 5th Corps map, see what we can do here. We got some contours of what the defensive lines are going to look like on both sides, so that helps a little bit. But it's not pleasant. It's kind of funny. It's like, it's still the way it is. But I played a little bit of Raid, not much. Watched the rest of my documentary. I got like 5 minutes until the day changeover, which is a good time for me to start playing Raid. But I kind of don't want to. I want to push this last map up. This isn't going to end the video because I think there's going to be some key units, probably from both sides, that are going to want to push movement a little further. I feel like I've gotten a reasonable defensive line. There's some units I haven't, you know, when I stop to talk, I'm able to think and I'm able to see units that I haven't moved. Now, I haven't moved that helicopter, that's fine. I think I've got just about everything in range of it. I could move it forward a little bit, it wouldn't hurt. But this artillery probably wants to move up to support this little salient that the West Germans are taking care of. I've managed to get some forces over here. Not a hell of a lot, but some. There's this serious defect right here where there's an artillery piece that had to move into place. Not optimal by any means. These guys, I haven't rolled yet to see if I can get them out of there. I'm gonna want to get them out. I don't want to get this armored cav out. I feel like it's doing its job by just being a little speed bump over there. And I've actually, I think we saw this on one of the other maps, thrown some of these armored cav out as speed bumps, just to prevent the Warsaw Pact from getting in easily. I may want to try to extricate that guy. He's not in a great location. There's a lot that's not in a great location. This whole segment here, that's not part of my line as far as I can see. I was thinking about extending down, but it doesn't make any sense. So I may try to at least get this one armored cav out. These guys are just doomed. But might be able to, no, I can't save the artillery. He's completely full up. But I might be able to save that armored cav, get it into a better position somewhere. And I'll look for such things. But overall, what I've got is a nice line with some terrain, not a hell of a lot. And then the artillery hiding behind that line so it can provide the maximum support and be kind of protected from the enemy wherever possible. You know, there's some places where it's not. I'll do the last couple of little moves and then I'll go to my game of Raid. We are Monday morning. Damn, it's not that early and it's cloudy as hell. Oh, I got a deer sleeping over there. I don't know if I can catch him. Let's see if I can get a... Yeah. Can't really see him on here. Her, actually, I would guess. But I don't know why. Okay. So we're heading into the second impulse of the second turn. And it's the Warsaw Pact side. And I've got a couple of air points left and a bunch of EW over on the Donau front, which are well, no, Huff Gap and yeah, the Dono front. And that's it. I basically don't think I used anything over on either of these, which leads to some interesting opportunities because maybe there's, you know, something like this helicopter that's available that I need to use EW to stop. This is probably, wow. Wonder where that came from. Somewhere in here, maybe. And then this guy. Yeah, these are the two that I pinned down. All right. So the fact that I have some air points, though, is a key thing because I don't want to waste those, which I think means I do want to conduct some sort of operations, even if it means wearing out my units a little bit more. I just don't know where to find, you know, it's always a pain in the ass when it's like, geez, feels like the Vietnam game, where it's like, well, what unit do I want to do something with? And, you know, in that game, each unit gets moved once, so they get flipped, they get marked with some kind of marker to indicate that they've been used, and kind of like flipping over, that's fine. You do have to hunt for somebody who's unused, but as the turn progresses, that becomes easier and easier. But here, honestly, it's everybody who's been used that I have an opportunity to use again. And wow, that's and it's not a small board either. I mean, there's as much going on here as there is on the Vietnam map, basically. I got an expensive breakthrough against an armored cav here to get my way up here. My plan being to get as much territory as I can. Now, here's where it got expensive. First of all, it took 2 attacks because although the EW worked in both cases, I got these 1-3 results here, which, and this was normal combat. The defender decided to absorb the losses on the first one, and on the second one, it didn't have any choice. It had to take at least 1 loss, and it only had 1 left. But artillery was flipped over. Cost me 1 to direct fire, and I took a hit in both cases. So that's 4 hits. What I forgot about was the additional hit for activating. And so that pushed me over the limit, and I actually lost a check artillery in that advance. Too bad, right? I mean, there just aren't a lot of options left. I mean, I could have fired something back here, maybe. I don't know. But instead, I'm going to take advantage of the artillery's resupply of ammo capability to move them faster, which feels like a bunch of ridiculous bollocks to me. We see that Czech division advanced. I lost an artillery unit. That made it not worthwhile. But that was my own fuck up. But beyond that, I'm not sure that paying the extra cost for the advances is really worth it. Like if this was just clear, if I didn't have the attacks and I didn't have the extra air points in the EW that I'm afraid of wasting somehow, would it have just been worth it? Forget about it, because the air points in the EW don't do anything. They just make it possible for me to launch these attacks. I launched a couple more attacks against an armored cav here. At first I used EW. When the EW failed and NATO didn't take advantage of it by throwing a helicopter in and stop my unit, I decided to stop using EW there because it's obviously not serving much purpose. It doesn't make sense to try to batter through these lines, as far as I can tell, but, you know, most of these units are now more tired. What did I gain, though? I gained out to this hex line, which is huge. I mean, I was back here. Now I'm up here. That feels like a tremendous leap forward in terms of victory conditions. But was it worth it or not? Like, could I have battered my way through this shit? Well, I don't know. And now am I in danger from that shit. Again, I don't know. I don't think so, because I just don't feel like NATO has the capacity to throw a lot of weight into anything. But there are openings where I could easily be surrounded, which causes the NATO units involved in the attack to be doubled. Well, that's not that big a bonus, honestly. Unless it's a big prepared attack, it's like, yeah, okay, so instead of 5 strength points, you got 10? What? Okay, great. Still 1 to 1. And over here on the Hofgaup map, I see a potential. This is check here of breaking through here, gaining a little bit more ground. Like, okay. Otherwise, the only thing I think I would have expended on this map is to move this artillery forward, because it hadn't expended all of the ammunition resupply it's going to get. So, you know, let's use that extra ammo bonus. I feel like that's really a problem. And yeah, it would add another layer of complexity to this game. But I did spell out a fairly simple means of causing the same effect. The problem is the bookkeeping is already painful enough, I'm finding, especially when you start dealing with the direct fire artillery. I'm really having trouble getting into the swing of that. That's why this unit was destroyed, was because I can't keep track of, you know, what's being killed and what's not. I think I have to launch another attack on this thing. My EW didn't work, that was part of the problem, but I didn't get an actual hit on them. I was doing mobile warfare, so the helicopter is still in pretty good shape. I will attempt again, I guess. I don't know, because again, I'm pushing these units. Oh, okay. One of the units, actually, I can't do the attack because it was a attack using multi-hex advantage. One of those units is now done with the multi-hex battle. It feels a little fucked up, right? Like, I launched this massive attack with these 2 forces. I understand the idea that, like, only one of the units can spearhead the attack continuing on, but it does feel odd that this thing is now out of the attack because it has expended its operations points for the multi-hex battle. Should I have done, you know, the prepared attack? Yeah, that would have actually gotten me damage, but it would have also caused, oh, did I fuck something up? No. I'm wondering if I spent twice for the 2 like I spent for each attack. I did for the artillery firing, but not for the ops points spent. This thing is now out of the combat, and gosh, you know, it would have been a fair trade-off to do the prepared, but it's very hard for me to accept the prepared because, hey, look, I can do advances and get some nice ground otherwise. This ground that I'm trying to gain isn't that important. This is not part of the front line for the NATO forces. It's not like I'm getting some breakthrough like I did here, where I get to advance the real front line. This unit, if it could, might have retreated, but it didn't seem worth expending, you know, a friction point to fall back a little bit. It's serving its purpose kind of like the armored cav does in terms of preventing attacks from getting through. So, I don't know. The problem is I have a lot of EW points over here on this map, and I feel like I'm wasting them if I don't use them. This is a wrongful thought, but it is very difficult for me to do otherwise. So this would come out to 12 and 2 is 14. 7 to 1. I could drop smoke and chemicals with the artillery. 7 to 1's not bad, but I don't really think I want to wear my units out anymore. So I think I'm going to call it there, and that generates. I put the extra hit on this guy, but I haven't put the extra hit on these guys yet. So this gets an extra hit, and that that mechanized infantry also does. And then I just say, okay, I'm done with this map. There's nothing else I want to move here. Artillery tends to be pretty localized, right? So I can usually find the artillery that I want to use. The helicopters are more of a pain. Boy, are they an annoyance on defense, because the defender is just waiting for you to like attack something that his helicopters have range on. But for the attack, I find it particularly difficult because, you know, I've got these helicopters back here. Now, I don't want to use any of these. They've all used their resources already. I'm not in any kind of, oh, I better use this or I'm losing some resource that, I'm losing the capability to use a resource. But because they're just going to recover the 1 point that they've taken already. But, you know, it's like, I do have these extra points if I want to float things in. And helicopters are particularly powerful on the mobile attacks, because unlike artillery, they don't get reduced. Which feels incredible when you're throwing like a 7-point helicopter into a fight. Found one more target of opportunity to pick on this map, and this guy was surrounded. That artillery was sitting here. So I attacked the artillery using EW and air point. I am down to no air points left? Yeah, which pretty much means I probably won't be doing any more attacks. I might be advancing units where there's a gap, you know, like there was there, but where I can find a gap that's worth doing. But here, breaking this guy out seemed worthwhile. And now he's not only broken out, but he's across the river. He chased that artillery, beat the shit out of it. There wasn't a hell of a lot I could do because of the West German doctrine and whatnot. So I'll keep moving on. I think I'm going to shift over to this map. Like as usual, I'm going to do the 5th Corps map last. Into a lot of detail. Usually with the operational games I don't, but I feel like the choices here, again, like in Vietnam, are fairly complex. Of course, they probably are in OCS as well. It's been such a long time. I think I did go into this kind of detail when I was looking at the more recent ones, like Reluctant Enemies that I've played. But, and I've just, you know, the style of my videos has changed tremendously. I couldn't find anything I wanted to do over here, except maybe move some of these helicopters up. That might be useful. But there's just no openings and no great opportunities here. I come over here, again, things look kind of messy over here. I don't really want to fuck with things. I thought there was some kind of opportunity over here, but I may have shut that down with this transfer of British troops in the way. I'm not like seeing an exposed artillery or anything like that that I absolutely should go pick on. Of course, I'm not looking all that closely. There's a lot of, you know, a lot of shit in the view that has to be absorbed in the different messiness on the hand-printed counters and stuff like that is causing issues. But again, this is pretty solidly defended again. Maybe there's an opportunity here. I don't really see it. Yeah. The one place I do is I look over here, and there's a unit of the 207th there, and a big opening right up the middle. Now I've already got an advance on this map that's pretty deep. So if I'm just looking at victory points, that doesn't mean much, but I'm also looking at the doctrinal elements as well. What else do I have of the 207th if I wanted to push forward? Because just this unit alone, yeah, it could create kind of like a, you know, a baseline for me as to how far I have gotten, and maybe cause some outflanking capabilities later. But I look at the rest of the 207th, and it is tired. And I just don't know. These guys aren't too bad. I could follow up with them. These guys are fairly fresh and are looking at a possible attack over there. Might have some helicopters here that can reach it. I bet you they can. It might be worth it. Do I have any EW in the Bayor map, and does it matter? First thing I do is I look. I do not have any EW over there, and okay, I only have it on those two maps, right? Okay, great. But, and basically what I'm looking at is if this guy forges forward, and he might even be able to make it into that river, for all I know. This is tricky movement here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He could make it up to here, which is pretty potent. And then if I get another move, I could cross the river. But you got to be careful, right? Like, the problem with this guy was he was out of supply. He wasn't going to recover his point. He was going to end up with a regular friction point on him. And you don't want to be out of supply. Of course, wait, he's not out of supply. First 4 turns or first 6 turns or whatever, Soviets aren't ever out of supply. They're carrying enough munchies with them. Okay, fine. So I gotta stop thinking in terms of that. I want to penetrate as far as I can. So yeah, I may try to do something here. What if I do this attack? This is a West German unit. There's a helicopter back here. That one's not going to do anything. Another West German helicopter is over here. That's not going to do anything. And I think those are the only ones that are within range anywhere near me. I don't see any other West German helicopters kicking around. So that's helpful. Very clearly there's no artillery in range of this. So yeah, we might launch an attack there, see how that goes, and then maybe attempt a penetration with this, because this is part of the 207th. What's this? This is part of the 10th Guard tank. So I had a 19-to-1 attack with chemicals added in. 19-to-1 isn't particularly advantageous. I could have gone at, what, like 11-to-1, being here, with 3 shifts. But instead I went to 19-to-1, which is here with 1, 2, 3 shifts, and I fucked up. I fucked up and caused myself losses that I wasn't supposed to get. I was on the wrong column. I forgot the chemical shifts. Okay, so yeah, that should be good enough to do this guy in. That was 1, 2, not completely, 3, 4. He'll retreat to there. And I had to use chemicals and smoke off of the artillery piece. I only did my normal hasty attack. Now I have to advance into here, and now the question is, do I have enough to attack again? Well, yeah, because now he's in clear terrain, so it's a lot easier. The reason I needed to deploy the chemicals and smoke from there. Oh, smoke? Am I sure? No, I did not deploy smoke. Okay, the reason I had to deploy the chemicals from there is I'm out of air points, and while I have artillery within range, I didn't have anything that's non-divisional. So this is like divisional artillery. I have 207th Divisional that was in range, I guess, maybe here or something, but it's stacked with regular units, so it's not allowed to. I have non-divisional here, but it's stacked, so it's not allowed to. So I have a lot less capability of using my artillery than the NATO forces do. They have a lot more flexibility. They can use their artillery directly. Of course, they don't necessarily want to, because they're on the defense for the most part. So they don't want their artillery on the line with their regular units. But the Soviets really, well, the Warsaw Pact in general, really want, and I'm going to keep doing that, they really want to have direct fire artillery involved in their attacks, because it's a double strength unit for a firepower. Which means they generally have their artillery stacked with their regular units. They don't end up splitting them up. Sure, I could drop it off, but then I don't have that hammer available for my next turn. So it's a hard call. Yes, this is what the 207th manages. And yeah, you know, I've degraded a position again, and it's making Hanover less and less defensible as I start, you know, pushing this flank out. It would have been kind of nice to maintain a defensive line along here, or at least coming this way, but now that's being thrown into question. So maybe I'm doing something good. I don't know. I'm certainly getting closer to the Weser. That is, I think, it for the Bear map, and now we come to the final bit. I don't know what I'm going to find here. One thing I found is an absolute failure on the Soviet turn. These units of the East German 7th didn't activate at all. I'm not going to be able to use them, and I'm not sure why. They're not tired or anything. I just lost track of them. Hey, shit happens, right? So that's an issue. It looks like there's room for an opening here, but I'm having trouble finding, you know, like this. Look, I can move up and engage, but I can do that next turn. And if NATO wants to shift forward into less defensible terrain to try to, you know, dress their line or whatever, that's fine. I don't give a shit about that. I'll pound, you know, if I have to pound through it anyway, I'll pound through it. If they want to wear themselves out moving into worse terrain, that's fine. The big thing I'd like to do is get up and through here, but I don't really have a division that's in condition to do that, I think. 20th Guard could definitely follow up on the 39th. 39th is in a weird position. It's like all over here, which is not optimal. But if I can slide the 20th Guard up this way, then the 39th can maybe shift over. Might even beat up on this thing. It's not doing me any harm in terms of movement right now. And yeah, I really wish I had those units of the 7th. They would definitely belong up there, you know? Like, oops. All right, and we got 20th Guard has shifted over here. That's pretty impressive to me, that kind of movement. I wish I could have punched through here, but do I really need to when I'm, you know, centralized in that position anyway? I don't know. You know, there weren't a lot of roads coming on the map this way, so that kind of directs things. I think that's it for the pact. Something I forgot to mention, someone contacted me via YouTube comments. Apparently, the original designer of this, Charles Camps, is at least aware of what I'm doing here. You know, I think, like I mentioned earlier on, I think Hipshot attempted this as well. He probably had a better version of the counters in terms of, like, they didn't look like they've all been chewed on by cats. But yeah, I don't know that he got very far. I don't know that I'm going to get very far. But I don't even know if he finished the first turn, to be honest. He has a tendency to bail on things. Whereas, you know, I've got a lot of, geez, I'm not sure it's working. I'm not sure it's not. I'm also generally not an operational games, you know, I'm not into the operational stuff. But I'm actually, like I think I mentioned a little earlier, I'm actually warming to this thing. I think that'll stop when I stop making the big gains, and when I hit the wall, and I think it's going to become clear that, look, it's just going to be, the first few turns are really interesting. And that's why in these scenarios, I don't know, here we have just one scenario or two. Yeah, we have two different scenarios. We have the thin red line, which is sort of the main scenario that lasts, and this is for all of them, that lasts, say, 10 turns or whatever. And then over here, we have the race for the Weser, which is just supposed to be the first couple turns. It takes about 5 hours to play. That's on one map. Yeah, that's probably about right. And that'll have, let's see. the goal for that is the number of Warsaw Pact regiments west of the Weser River are occupying hexes of castle at the end of the game. And for victory conditions, they have to be able to trace a supply line. You need to get a couple of regiments across to get a real victory. So let's take a look. Here's the Weser. If it weren't for the fact that I shifted off the Fifth Corps map, I'm nowhere near, right? I am pretty much blocked down. Just as an example, you know, let's maybe I'll take a look at the Hofgap and Fifth Corps individual victory conditions as well. I don't know what they should be for these other maps. That's somebody else's projection, and I can do as good a job as anyone. But it's kind of interesting to take a look at this and see, yeah, you know, I failed on the Bauer map. I failed. It doesn't look bad. Now, did I really? I don't know. I mean, I'd be able to punch through on the next turn or whatever. But under any reasonable circumstances, I wouldn't actually be able to cross, I wouldn't cross the Weser. I'm not willing to push this unit further than I already have, right? Knowing that I'm going to keep playing. This is the problem, and I have this problem with ASL type scenarios. This is a problem with any kind of smaller scenario type situation where there's not an absolute clear, yeah, I won or whatever, is that, look, your victory conditions might be some kind of goal, like cross the Weser with 2 or more regiments. Well, yeah, I can do that, but I'll destroy them in doing it. You know, not that NATO can wipe them out, but they won't be functional for the rest, you know, for many turns. And I'll have to like devote a division to like keep them in supply across the Weser. And that's not going to do me any good, right? So, this I feel is an advance that I can justify within the context of the full game. So let's take a look at what the Fifth Corps and Hofgap victory conditions are. Bad for me. The Fifth Corps scenario is the only one that uses the whole map. This is out of the original. There's the battle for Fulda, but that only uses half the map. No, that's fine. It uses the half up to this line. So, but we made it most of the way. So let's see what the victory conditions were for that. Now, I don't know how many turns that goes. Oh, we're not through the first 2 days yet. We're through the first day, AM, PM. First 2 turns, not first 2 days. Yeah, we should be able to get across the Weser. All right, so it's not really time to check the victory conditions yet, says this person who thinks. How long does this one last? This is again game turn 4. Okay, we'll wait to check these. I want to use the original victory conditions as opposed to there's sort of a combined maps 3-game victory conditions. Why? I don't know. I really don't know. But because the combined map probably makes the most sense. But anyway, yeah. I mean, I think we're getting close to the edge of this. Probably exiting that with units is the victory conditions for the Fifth Corps map. And if we look at Hofgap, it also has one of these. So again, I'm pushing beyond that. So I would say I'm actually doing pretty well with the offensive. Now I've cheated in favor of the Soviets. And then we have things like, hey, look, you know, I can use advantages from one map to attack the other. I don't feel like that helps the defense at all. Having a larger map is definitely to the advantage of the offensive player because it's easier for gaps to open up. There's nothing that's going to make it easier to defend a larger space. Even if you have more units, like, I mean, unless you have way too many units on one map and they weren't counted as reinforcements in the other or something like that, I just don't see any advantage to opening it up the way it is. And, you know, if those units were meant to transit over, if they were necessary in the plan and whatever, they would probably be included as reinforcements in the other game. All right, we're going to take a little break, then I'll come back, see if NATO wants to do anything with their additional turn. I think the Warsaw Pact is pretty much tapped out. I really don't think they have more that they want to do, but we'll see. Maybe something opens up that's just impressive. Remember, units that didn't move just now, but moved in that first operation phase, do get to move. And yeah, I've gotten a lot more verbose and a lot more looking at the detail of what's happening in the play rather than like the overall. You know, if I had done this 10 years ago or whatever, I would probably, after a couple gameplay examples, I would come in and just show you, you know, what the front line is each time. Now, I don't know which is more appealing, right? I seem to have less viewers now than I did back then. There's a lot more options out there. I'm a lot more annoying than I used to be, or something. My videos take a lot longer, there's that. But I don't know, you know, whatever happened, happened. Well, it's supposed to be a prettier day, so I'm hoping to be able to go shopping tomorrow. I mean, there's a lot of rain happening still. But 2 weeks after, at least, after my cart looked like it was not in good shape, I finally went down and was able to face it. And I looked at it, and it is not in good shape. And I looked at my old cart, because I thought maybe one of the two wheels on my old cart could replace the really damaged wheel on my new one, and they both look pretty iffy. So I ordered new wheels, but, you know, I could have done this 2 weeks ago, right? I can't face anything that might be bad. And I put it off and put it off. And I knew this was horrible. Anyway, what it means is I'm not going to be able to get as much stuff, and I'm going to be carrying it on my backpack. Not that little one. I got a big military pack, but I also am not as strong as I used to be, so I probably can't carry as much as I used to, and I don't have an extra person to throw a couple of things at. So yeah, it's not an appealing choice. So now I'm on the NATO side of things. I'll just buy a lot less, like no milk. Can't buy milk, too heavy. Shouldn't buy eggs. I can get those nearby anyway, both milk and eggs. I can't get my normal, like my normal eats. I just can't get it at the supermarket that's near me. It's the market of no choice. So I'm going to look over the NATO units, see if there's anything that's already moved that I want to move again. There may be some holes that I need to fill, some places where I need to make a little bit more advance forward. There's not going to be a hell of a lot. I find much over here on this map. I filled in a gap over here on the river that was kind of disturbing to me. But man, here where that big breakthrough came through, yeah, I got to do something about that. So I'm starting to shift some units over. This is kind of tough because, again, I don't have an easy way to tell me what units I've moved and what I haven't. I'm mainly doing memory. I really should rotate my units. I feel like I can keep it in mind, but not if I take a pause or keep videoing. Oh shit. I forgot you pay an extra movement point for each hex you move. Now I didn't hit the Soviets with that either. I'm gonna allow the speedier movement this turn. At least, yeah, pretty much everywhere to try to balance that out. But I completely forgot that. You pay 1 extra movement point per hex, which means these big advances would not have happened. So, yeah, I should not be that far ahead. I can't undo it. It's just, there's a lot of little particles of sand in this game that make it really, really hard to remember, like, because you do all your things one way, and then and then, you know, the next operations phase, things are different, and it's just almost impossible to grasp it all on an early play. Like, you know, if this was a game that I studied and played a hell of a lot of, sure, I'd get used to this kind of cranky little stuff. But man, oh man, it's just really, really hard on someone who's a game browser. And trust me, no one played these games all that heavily. You know, the SPI magazine games, they usually got a play or two, and then you'd be on to the next one. You know, you had 2 months in between each magazine game, right? Sure, this one, yeah, you got to buy another one in this series and everything, but to get really used to this series and how different it is in so many ways from every other series and from every other war game that's out there in a lot of different ways, it's really finicky about that. And, you know, ouch. Like those Czechs, another lost unit. These guys never moved. They don't have any hits against them. I definitely would have pushed them somewhere. I don't know where, but they're British. They would have made it, you know, forward on the front or something. They didn't bother. I don't mind this engineer here. It was doing, it's not going to be terribly helpful. And until I started designing this defensive line, I wouldn't have wanted it at all. Yeah, now I would buff up something. Unfortunately, some of my movement, even with cheating, as I've been doing, I can't get into places like here. Some of it, in order to avoid this piece and get through this kind of terrain, I had to go around the corner to get into a decent location. Let's start with the Donau front. By the way, this is the biggest pull of number chits from another game that I think I've ever faced. Oh, I think my deer is up to something interesting out there. I don't know, they never do anything too interesting. Oh, hiding over there. Either that or it's a big-ass turkey. My eyes aren't good enough. I was hoping the camera could show me better. Okay, so it's a lot easier for me to move units in defense and add friction points to them, you know, and just say, oh, I can expend, you know, that extra effort because imminent collapse is going to happen. Whereas, hey, maybe I should spread my units out and see how far, you know, I could push and put myself in a stupid out of supply, you know, position as possible. Maybe I should do that, right? That feels really antithetical to my way of thinking in combat games, and you know, I'm much more World War I than sort of post Blitzkrieg type thought. So you know, hey, I'm okay with the let's rush the taxis and get the troops as hard as possible up into Verdun and whatever. Let's make sure we get the stuff up to the front to defend it. But the idea of like trying to push through as hard as possible and wear the units out that way feels just so wrong to me. Anyway, so we have the German line starting over here. Now there's a huge gap over here. I can't do anything. I can't cover everything. And this is all shit terrain. These guys came in from here. You could say, well, what about some of these guys? Could you have gotten them? Yeah, maybe, but I've got these guys stuck here. They were beat up. I wasn't expecting to get this deep in advance, and I shouldn't have gotten that deep in advance. Call it surprise, whatever. It's me fucking up the rules of the game. Then over here, we got a defect here, but it's sort of covered, so we got room to fall back. Some stuff over here. There's some mountain units that were slipping through between the checks. Not much I can pull back from out here. I want to get as much as possible out of here, but I can't anymore. And then the line to the river line, to whatever extent that was holding. Over here on Hoff Gap, I don't think much changed here. I did shift some U.S. unit, this U.S. artillery pulled back, but otherwise there's not a hell of a lot I can do. Again, a lot of these units are paralyzed because I didn't move them in the first operations and I didn't flip them over. They're already damaged, man. You know, maintaining some sort of operational capability to them by making them more damaged just felt horrible. Again, the advances are a little too fast. This map shows it less than the map that really shows it the worst. That map shows it very badly. This map shows it very badly. And obviously, you know, I couldn't just, well, NATO can't react fast because now I remember the rule. That wouldn't be fair, right? NATO has to be able to react quickly. I think I got the rule right on the first turn. This turn I didn't. So we see a big advance happening that shouldn't have happened. Yeah, over here, this is kind of deep. But not a lot changed here. We still got the same basic line. Yeah, we got some, you know, weird shit going on down there. Do I want to move this? I could. It's an artillery. I really should. Did I move it already? I don't think so. All right, I'll move that a little bit later. Because then I got to come back and see, do the Warsaw Pact units want to do anything additional? I really doubt that they do. This line stayed pretty much the same, I think. We've strengthened this. Some U.S. units put a little bit of extra oomph in. I don't know if this guy should have a marker under him. Too bad that he doesn't. I can't tell you. It looks like he should, but maybe he got there more easily than everybody else for some unknown reason. And that kind of like little mistake, that's okay, right? Oh, I forgot to put a friction point counter on one unit or something. Look, to some extent, I feel like you should have to roll to lose friction points and stuff like that because there's some chance that it wouldn't happen, you know, that recovery wouldn't actually occur, that you wouldn't be getting your replacements and whatnot. But, you know, much easier to just leave that up to the fuck-ups. That's actually one thing broadly in wargaming that I feel is, look, the fuck-ups, like with that armored actually artillery piece, it's this guy who got left behind and got kind of bypassed by the Warsaw Pact accidentally. Weird shit like that, there's no way you can build it into the rule system, but weird shit like that does happen in real war situations. So I'm always okay with like little things around the edges going really fucked up, even if they end up having fairly big effects. Oh geez, I'm so worried that my new cartwheel that I ordered is gonna be, you know, some heavy ass, it's supposed to hold like 250 pounds, each one is. It's gonna be some heavy ass fucking thing that won't fit on my cart. That's why I stuck with the plastic ones before. But anyway, it says it works on shopping carts, so I'm hoping. Let's see. This line, again, pretty close to what it was, except for this. I think we rushed some additional German into here. And then here, we've got this problem here. I don't have anything I can do about it. I threw up as much defense as I can. There's a gap. I guess I could punch one of these British units through. I'll do that as well. It helps to look over everything, because then I catch where I fucked up. And it's really important on the defensive side to not fuck something like this up, right? On the offensive side, oh, look, you know, your units are surrounded and you're dead. Well, okay, that's not good either. Down here, this all looks okay. We ran real hard to get units to fill in this gap here that was penetrated. Over here, almost nothing changed on this map. All right, I'll try to fix those couple of things I noticed. And then we'll see if the Soviets want to go. And then conceivably NATO could go yet again, just keep piling on the friction points. I mean, it's worth it if you can get a defense that's not going to suffer losses, right? If you can get a solid enough defense that you stop the enemy, it's just worth it. Okay, I think we pretty much stopped there. One of the problems, first of all, there's just so much, territory. You have to look over and see, am I fucked if I leave this alone? Am I fucked if I leave this open? I don't know. But not leaving it open means falling back maybe to this line. Almost think I have to. How bad are these checks? These checks are not in great shape. Some of them are okay. But they're not going to batter through anything. I'm thinking I do want to fall back here. I mean, the thing is, again, it's just like the wanting to rush your units wherever they can get to. There's also any error you make on the line, anything that you fuck up can be exploited and can end up being a massive breakthrough. Any little screw up. So that's the hard part of defense. And when I'm facing this much map and trying to defend terrain all across it, it ain't easy. And I'm not that familiar with the system in the sense of being able to judge, oh, is this safe? It doesn't look it. But am I really threatened? I'm looking at like this guy. Is he really a threat? He'll be recovered. He'll be good. Is it worth me flinging another unit up there? I know this. The Warsaw Pact has decided to pass. They don't have the capability to just keep burning their units for advance, for hexes, unless there's something really valuable. Now there might have been here, but screw it. I've gained enough as far as I'm concerned. I've got to wait until this shit catches up to some extent. Otherwise, I'll just be cut off up near Munich. But is pushing these guys back, does that make sense for the West Germans? And I could also throw some of these in. I think so. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I got too many fucking defects in my line. Nah, I'll leave it as it is. I got too many defects, and I think this vaguely covers Munich. Could the Czechs run their asses off and get there? Sure, but yeah. All right, so that is the end of turn 2, the first day. We've seen advances that are too far. And they're too far because I allowed the second impulse movement, to be full movement on the second turn. I don't think I did that on the first turn, and it is really a good reason why you don't push your units, right? Especially on offense, you're just not going to gain that much ground. But then again, on defense, you're not going to throw up that heavy a defense. Does it even out? Probably not. It's probably, again, an advantage for the attacker. They gained ground that would have been much, much harder to get. Because next turn, sure, I could have gotten here with those same units and then had follow-ups. I don't know. It may not work out all that well for the attacker. We'll see. But overall, I think that they gained ground that at the very least, the defender could have covered by burning their units harder. Because again, I think the defender has the opportunity to burn friction points a little bit more than the attacker does. The attacker has to rest up and get their friction points back before they can launch another attack. The defender just has to ensure that the odds table, that the odds table doesn't defeat them. the odds table is really slated in favor of the defender in so many ways that, you know, especially since you might give up a couple of hexes or whatever on a retreat and reduce your losses that way. Of course, that reduces the attacker's losses too, but the attacker takes a single loss each time they attack. The defender does not. They only take losses when they fire their artillery. All right, we'll send this up. I'm sure it's another fucking long one. Oh, boy. I don't know how much more I got in me. I mean, I'm getting a pleasure out of it, but I know it's going to completely bog down. I know the attack is going to become impossible once a defensive line is formed. And at that point, I think the game just becomes uninteresting, right? It is too much work to launch the attacks. I'm worried OCS is going to feel the same way, especially on the West Front. The East Front, there's so much space. The desert, there's so few troops that there's a lot of mobility available in things, which is, of course, the interesting part to more modern operational games is the mobility aspect of it. I don't know. I mean, I enjoy my bogging down in World War I. I just don't want that to happen here for some reason. I don't know. It doesn't feel right.